Hey everybody, Spear here, and welcome to another Archetype 101, and today we're going over Mono Green Ginyu Force. As you can see, I'm doing the whole business attire shtick. I know a lot of people have been saying that they really like the thumbnails, and obviously they'd like if that translate over to me actually doing the 101s in a suit and tie, or at least business attire. I do not promise that I do this every time. In terms of weather conditions, it's not totally always viable for me to do so, especially when we hit, temperatures of like 40 plus degrees Celsius sometimes if you add humidity. But whenever I can do it, you know what, why not? I'll go the extra step. So today, like I was saying before, Ginyu, very typical of, previous Ginyu archetypes. It always revolves around trying to swarm the board with the different characters of the Ginyu Force. Obviously, Ginyu Force coming in from DragonBall Z specifically. Frieza's top squad from Namek. Obviously, you had like Dodoria and Zabza and all that kind of stuff, but aside from them, they were really the main focus of Frieza's squad. And like with other Ginyu Force archetypes, it's all about swarming the board. How can we cheat in Ginyu Forces? We'll start with the leader, just to kind of give an idea of how we're doing it, because this time around, we're swarming via a lot of deck manipulation. So we have Ginyu on his front side. When this card attacks, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a green Ginyu Force card with an energy cost of 2, you may play it, then draw 1 card. So this is pretty good in that you not only get the search and then the play, but you also get a draw. So effectively, if you can manipulate your deck accordingly, you essentially get a +2 off his front side. Pretty decent. And then he awakens at 4 life or less, or if you have 4 or more Ginyu Force cards in play in your battle area. Draw 2 cards, flip the leader. On his awakened side, I kind of have a gripe because he's not a Goku, even though technically this probably should be a Goku and Ginyu card. I get for balancing reasons why there probably isn't, but I don't know, it's just a little myth on my end. But anyways, we have Ginyu, new leader of the Force. When this card attacks, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a green Ginyu Force card with an energy cost of 2, you may play it, then draw 1 card. Same thing as we saw before. Now he has an activate battle for 1 green. Choose 1 green Ginyu Force card in your battle area, and it gets 10k power for the battle. So this is decent, especially since it's activate battle. You can kind of sneak it in, especially if you're going for like a sneak double strike kill. It's an extra 10k combo. It's not insane, but to have that kind of versatility on your leader every turn means that you can 10k combo if you have any excess energy without having to drop cards. Super useful. Now we go on to the swarm, and like with every Ginyu Force deck, we're swarming the board with, well, Ginyu Force. First we got Jaice, second in command. He has unique. All of the Ginyu Force in this case have unique, which makes, deck manipulation a little bit more important, because if you have a Jaice on board already, regardless of your Ginyu auto, you won't be able to get him on board if he's the one on top of your deck. So for this one, he says, when this card attacks, look up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, add to 1 Ginyu Force card among them into your hand, and then place the remaining cards on the top or bottom of your deck in any order. So 2 things. First, this is different than the Tournament of Power field card. Because it's and or, you definitely get to split that however you want, which means you can put 1 on top, 1 on the bottom, 2 on the bottom, however you like, or at least that's the way I'm interpreting it. And additionally, this is where we start seeing the manipulation of the deck. We're gonna be able to put a Ginyu in our hand and then put another 1 on top, so that when we attack in, we're able to go ahead and play it on board. Raccoon, the Musclehead, unique. If your leader card is a Ginyu card, when this card is played, choose up to 1 green Ginyu Force card when it costs 2 in your hand and play it. So now we're starting to see how this really kind of swarms and chains together. Because if we get a Raccoon down, we can get a Jaice down, and then with Jaice we can stack the top of our deck, and then we can attack in to get another Ginyu Force down. So now we can see that turn 2, this can start getting really swarmy. Very similar to how Pilaf in our previous 101 is able to flood the board on turn 3 by being able to cheat out a body that cheats out a bunch of other bodies. This is kind of where this is going, except as opposed from searching from the deck for him, we're manipulating the top of our deck to be able to do so. Birder, fastest in the universe, unique blocker. At the end of your turn, switch this card into active mode, and then look up to 3 cards from the top of your deck and place them on top or bottom of your deck in any order. Again, just be able to do that every single turn is very good. And finally, we have Guldo, Psycho Psychic. Activate main. If your leader card is a Ginyu Force and you discard this card from your hand, look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck and place them on top and or bottom of your deck in any order. So now we have it from the board at the end of our turn and from our hand, where we can manipulate our deck, which means we can do it multiple times in a turn if we need to. And also activate main once per turn. Look at up to 5 cards from the top of your deck and place them on top and or bottom of your deck in any order. So if Guldo's in play, now we're not only digging 3, we're digging 5 deep. now we have a board full of 15Ks. You know, what are we going to do with them? Swap was always really good because you could attack with a bunch of 15Ks on turn 2, but the way the game is to this day with how interactive it is, it needs a little bit more than that. So that's why we have the in-game of Ginyu, Backbone of the Force. He has an activate main if you have at least one Raccoon, Jais, Birder, and Guldo card in play, so you do need the entire squad on board. You can play this card from your hand, and you can't play copies of this card for your turn, which means you cheat him out. On turn 2, if you manage to somehow flood your board, which I don't know if it's totally possible, but it's pretty close. I think you can get 3 on board on turn 2. So let's say turn 3 you get your entire squad. You can play him down for free. Now you have your energy available to do whatever you want. When this card is played, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards and gain control of it. If you gain control of a card, give control of this card to your opponent. So unlike previous Ginyu cards, this one has no restrictions. It just says when you play it, swap with something. Really powerful, especially since I think this body is even weaker than the previous Ginyu that used to be able to do this. On top of that, now you have a new body, and you know it's probably if your opponent's playing a competent deck, that means it's probably a double striker, it has a big body, it can do something for you right away. And once you're done with it, we go into Ginyu the Body Snatcher. He's got double strike. He's got permanent. This card gets minus 10k power during your opponent's turn. I don't think that's really relevant. I think the turn you go for Ginyu, you're probably going for a kill. If not, it's not a big deal if he stays on board. Activate main. Choose one battle card you gain control of from your opponent with one of your card skills and place in its owner's drop. Play this card from your hand. So you're essentially swapping out a card you gain control of for this one. Mind you, this is not specific to just Backbone of the Force. Any card you use to gain control of a card, so let's say you somehow used a Toa to gain control of a card, or somehow you're playing a deck that can play this and Mechikabura, well then you can use that card to sack off and then go ahead and go into this card. And then auto, if your leader is a green Ginyu Force card, when this card is played, choose all your Ginyu Force cards in your battle area and they get 10k power for the turn. That makes Body Snatcher Ginyu a 30k double striker, and now all of your Ginyu Force are now 25ks. Nothing crazy, but now we're attacking in with a board of 25ks, which is pretty good considering turn 2 you're probably swinging in with a bunch of 15ks. Now obviously, every color gets Unison cards. None are super, like I want to say super built for this Ginyu archetype, but some work somewhat decently. So we have Golden Frieza, Unison of Malice. +1, activate main, draw one card, then choose one card in your hand, place it on the top of your deck, and this card gains critical for the turn. This kind of works with the deck manipulation thing where if you have Golden Frieza on, you can start stacking the top of your deck with Ginyu Forces to be able to get them on board. This is probably the most synergistic ability in terms of how it works with the archetype. And of course he has a -2. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, your opponent can't attack with battle cards unless they choose one of their battle cards on each cost of 2 or more and place it in its owner's drop area. A bit stally, a bit more control-y. You know, added tech is never bad. There's also Super Saiyan Bardock, Paternal Unison. He's just good. Like, I just include him in here because you're going to be swarming, you're going to be attacking, and this is a great card to kind of push aggression. Especially if, you know, you go on turn 3, you're going into your big play. You can probably sneak in playing Bardock, which makes it harder for your opponent to combo. And also, if you survive the turn, you can go into a big 20k triple attack. So auto, when your opponent combos, you may place up to one card from their combo area into his drop area. If you do, negate this skill for the turn. So it's optional. The way it's worded, instead of being once per turn, it means it doesn't proc off the first time your opponent combos. So you get to choose when your opponent combos that, you know, this is the one I want. And then the ability gets negated for the turn. And this happens every turn. It is absolutely backbreaking to try and deal with this with that fact. +1, activate main. Choose one of your green battle cards when energy cost of 1 and KO it. If you do, your opponent chooses one card in their hand and discards it. This is kind of where, like, it's just generically good. It doesn't have a bunch of, synergy with the archetype, but making your opponent neg, especially when you're in green and you probably have other effects on top of this that can make your opponent neg, pretty decent. -3, activate main. This card gets 5k power and triple attack for the turn. Now you have a 20k beat stick that is really hard to interact with. You know, rivals won't be able to kill it and such. Good inclusion. Side mention, I didn't include it here, but there is the Demigod that's like a 1-drop and he's aggressive. And I can understand wanting to put him in if this is like, with this being kind of an aggressive leaning deck. But at the end of the day, I didn't think it had enough synergy with the rest of the archetype to include it as part of, you know, this 101. Now we have the Searchers. None specific to Ginyu, but they work with Unisons enough that it was worth mentioning. So we have Zarbon. I think earlier I said Zabza. My bad, that's my Naruto brain running. So Zarbon was the one I was talking about. When this card is played, look up the top 5 cards of your deck, add up to 1 green Unison card with a specified cost of 2, or 1 green Freeze Army card with an energy cost of 4 or less among them in your hand, and shuffle your deck. So there you go, we are able to find some of our Ginyu pieces, if not actually most of them now that I think of it. The reason I'm kind of iffy on this one is because he has an activate battle that you won't be able to use because your leader is not a green Frieza. Where it says if you have a green Unison card in play, you can send this card from your drop area to your warp, and you get to choose 1 of your leader cards or Unison cards against 10k power for the battle. At the end of the day though, I think you'd run this just for the sake of being able to search. Unison cards are cards you're gonna want to be able to see, and this one giving you the option of either finding a Unison or a Ginyu, pretty decent. Bulma, Life on Namek, she's a Saiyan searcher more than anything else, but again, when she searches Unison cards. And that's good enough of a reason, I feel, if you don't have Zarbons, to at least include a couple, because of how much I think Unisons warp the game state. Looking at her, she looks at the top 5 cards of your deck. You add 1 green Unison card when it's specified cost of 2, or a green Saiyan when it costs of 3 or less among them in your hand, and then shuffle your deck. On top of that, there might be some green Saiyans, like maybe you include the 1-drop crit Gohan, and that lets you look up that. It's not archetype specific, but a lot of tech is just Saiyan, so you can definitely fall into adding her if you have enough tech to include in the Ginyu archetype. Finally, we have the defensive cards, a lot of them. All mono colors have, all cards benefit from being, almost all the defensive cards benefit from being like monocolored, or also they benefit from having unisons. So we'll just go through them right away. There's quite a few of them. Zarbon, Victory Over Beauty. Counterattack, negate the attack play this card. When this card is played during your opponent's turn, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards, KO it, then choose up to 1 card in your opponent's hand and discard it. So obviously a lot of value, but do take note that this is a 3-cost counterattack, which is a lot. And in this deck, I don't see you holding up 3 very often, but it's an option if you feel like you need it. Blue Impulse. Permanent, if your leader card is green and you have a green Unison card in play, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1. Activate main, if your opponent played a battle card this turn, choose all your opponent's battle cards and KO them. This one's like good. Like it doesn't ignore barrier, unfortunately, but it's really powerful in that it essentially says, you know what, you played a counterattack that plays itself, lose your entire board now. I'd be hard pressed to not try and sneak like 1 or 2 copies of this in any deck I play with Ginyu. Dodoria, Brimming with Power. Counterplay for 1. If your leader card is mono green and you have a green Unison card in play, if the battle card being played is an energy cost of 2 or less, it's placed in the drop area instead of being played, then play this card. Never hits the board. These are always great. Stops on play procs. 2-drops, not super relevant, but when we're talking about all these set 10 decks that essentially want to play 2-drops to cheat in more 2-drops, actually kind of be pretty relevant. I don't know about meta relevant, but definitely locals relevant if your locals is aiming to do set 10 shenanigans that aren't super tier 1. Dormant Potential Unleashed. If your leader card is mono green, choose any number of your opponent's battle cards that add up to a total of 2 or less and KO them. Additionally, you may choose 1 green card in your hand and discard it. If you do, your opponent can only attack once more this turn. It's effectively a Nimbus that also gets rid of a bunch of weenies on board. Dope. And of course, like what all of these ones have, it's if you have a green Unison card in play, you can activate this card's counter skill from your hand without paying its energy cost. Primo, super good, really powerful card. Dark Deathball, counterplay. If you have a green Unison card in play, if the battle card being played has an energy cost of 4 or less, it's placed in the owner's drop area instead of being played. Then choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 1 and KO it. So very on theme for green, more board clearing. And if all your energy is mono green, you can activate this card's counter skill from your hand without paying its energy cost by choosing 2 cards in your hand and discarding them. And finally, the battle card SR that every single color gets. You can't activate this counterplay skills of other cards for the turn. Play this card from your hand. Permanent, when you have a green Unison card with 2 or more markers in play, you can activate this card's counter skill from your hand without paying its energy cost. And auto, when this card's played, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 7 or less and KO it. 7 or less is a whole bunch of cards. It doesn't cover SCRs, or most SCRs, unfortunately, if not all of them. However, it covers a whole breadth of cards, and especially for the fact that you can play for free if you have the right setup. Even if it cuts your counterplays for the turn, knowing what your opponent's gonna play really allows you to kind of set up, your turn to be able to use this effectively without dampering or dying. And essentially, that's the Ginyu Force as a 101. There is the Green Ape SCR. but it's not archetype specific. Essentially what it says that like you can opt to combo with it to kill a card, and if not, it's like a big double strike beater or something like that on board. It's super versatile, but I don't think it's archetype specific. Of course, like with anything, you can include it if you like. This time I did forget to look at promo. I don't think there's a Ginyu promo, but there might be. So apologies, I looked at the core archetype this time. Looks cool. I don't know how much it interacts with previous Ginyu archetypes. The fact that these ones, all the Ginyu forces this time have unique, obviously make it a little bit tougher to swarm off, and does mean that you could get clunked off, which is why you have to mitigate a lot with the deck manipulation. But if you can get that rolling, it's definitely going to be potent to be able to flood the board with that many 2-drops on turn 2, especially since Ginyu is drawing a ton of cards. You get card advantage from playing the card, and you get card advantage from also drawing additional to playing the card. So I see a lot of options here. So while I don't see a ton of options in building the deck, I think it'll give a lot of means to be able to find lines of play that are fun and interesting, especially when you can manipulate, 3 to 15 cards on your deck in any given turn, which as someone who was looking to play miracles back in Magic, I think that's a lot of fun. If you have anything wrong, if you'd like to let me know how you plan on building this deck, let me know in the comments down below. Of course, a like's always appreciated if you thought this was good. Dislike works also. And if you want to see more Archetype 101s or any other content coming to the channel, feel free to subscribe so you're notified next time something comes up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Ciao.